Texas senators are considering a bill that would increase the Texas Education Agency's power to investigate alleged abuse on school campuses. Multiple witnesses detailed their personal experiences with sexual misconduct on a school campus during a public meeting this week. Investigator Kelly Wiley has the details on the push to make students safer.
Okay, we're going to keep at this until we stamp this out.
In an emotional hearing at the Texas Capitol, lawmakers heard testimony on a string of bills dealing with sexual misconduct on school campuses, including a bill that would expand the number of school employees the Texas Education Agency can investigate for misconduct to include contractors and non-certified employees. Lawmakers filed the bill in response to a KXAN investigation that found a former juvenile corrections officer got a contracted tutoring job at Austin ISD after the Texas Juvenile Justice Department determined he had had an inappropriate relationship with the student.
There's a failure here, no question. And this person should have never been around young people ever again in their life. SB 571 is an attempt to close these loopholes in the Do Not Hire registry.
The investigation highlighted issues with information sharing between state agencies and facilities that care for minors, but also the limitations for who can be investigated by the TEA and be listed on the agency's Do Not Hire registry.
This bill appropriately covers more than 250,000 personnel in public schools who were not previously covered by our Do Not Hire registry. Imagine that's 250,000 coaches, bus drivers, custodians, cafeteria workers not previously covered are covered by this bill. So pass this great bill, close these loopholes, and fund TEA to do the investigations needed to keep these predators out of all schools.
Kelly Wiley, State of Texas.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton says he is challenging Senator John Cornyn for his Senate seat in next year's midterm elections. This sets up what will undoubtedly be a contentious and expensive GOP primary contest ahead of 2026. To give us some insight, we invited Jasper Scherer, the politics reporter with the Texas Tribune, to the show. Thank you for being here.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Well, let's dive right in. Cornyn is a longtime senator, has held the seat since 2002. Why is Paxton choosing to try and take the seat right now?
Well, I think it's kind of a reflection in some ways of where Republican politics are at in Texas and nationally, just in terms of, the folks who are voting in and deciding these Republican primaries are much more in league with the kind of the Paxton wing of the party, looking at these low turnout contests where, especially in midterm, non-presidential elections like we'll have in 2026, where turnout is even lower. It's the kind of the more engaged and farther right activists who are going to be turning out, and that's Ken Paxton's bread and butter. So it'll be up to John Cornyn to make the case for kind of his conservative, accolades, his accomplishments, and to convince enough folks and maybe expand the electorate a bit, get some folks out who are, from his base, kind of more of the establishment business-minded wing.
Yeah, you kind of alluded to it. These two politicians really represent the two sides of the Republican Party right now in Texas. What are these ideologies and where have we seen that split play out before?
Generally speaking, thinking back to kind of the Texas Republicans who were in power when John Cornyn, came into statewide prominence when he was elected Attorney General of Texas in 1998, when he first won his Senate seat in 2002. This was coming on the tail end of the George W. Bush governorship in Texas. It was an era of much more kind of Chamber of Commerce business Republicans who were running the show. Now in the era of Trump, it's the Paxton Paxton type politicians who are ascendant, and they are kind of seizing their moment. Going back to your first question, part of it is just seems to be that Paxton kind of smells blood in the water, that he's been putting out some early polls showing that at least from what he sees, he's got an early advantage over Cornyn. So but definitely some distinct advantages, but also Cornyn will be presenting his own conservative record and, telling voters about all the Trump appointees that he has been confirming and all the conservative legislation he helped pass as the Senate GOP whip. So we'll see if that lands with enough primary voters.
All right, Jasper Scherer from the Texas Tribune, thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
We really don't know just how many people are impacted by this disease. It just doesn't get the attention it needs.
How a freshman Texas representative is bringing lawmakers together to track sickle cell disease, what the bill would do, and the impact it could have.